Okay, so the Supreme Court just squashed out the recollation results from Tema Central, Ablekuma North, Techima South, and Okaikwe Central. That's for you to know that earlier last week we had the recollation happen, and when the recollation happened, the declaration that was made was that the seats were turned back to the MPP. The Supreme Court has squashed that off. We're going to discuss the implication of that on the constituencies and what it has with regards to governance. We would also discuss the conversation of the implication it also has on other constituencies that were not included in this ruling. It's Ask Julius, but I'm the one asking Julius this time. And my name is Rafael Arthur, and I'm the host for today's show. Julius, how does it feel being a panelist on your own show for you?
Anyway, it doesn't feel any different. It reminds me of Focus FM.
Charlie, it's been a while.
When you were the guy, anytime I came to Kumasi and you'd be rushing me. You know, those times when I come to Kumasi, because I was running for Nooks, he will be rushing me to give me a time to come and talk. But well,
I feel the story is wrong, but let's just get back to the discussion. So let's talk about the whole implication. And I want you to address it from two fronts. The first one has to do from the technical aspect of it and what it means. We'll talk about the basic 101 knowledge. That's because we are addressing two groups of individuals. The first one are people that are very interested in knowing what the technicalities mean and the kind of effect it has on the other rulings. Can you give us, from the constitutional perspective, what it means?
So, two things. The decision of the court implies, I mean, in terms of the implication on who gets to keep the seats and who doesn't, implies that in Tema Central, the NDC's candidate who was declared, Ebi Bright, is now still the member of parliament elect. In Okaikwe Central, Baba Sadiq, same for Techiman South, and then Ablekuma North. That's the straightforward implication for those who are interested in who is their MPs elect for those various constituencies. The NDC's candidates are the MPs elects for those constituencies. But the essence of the case must be understood from this view. The MPP went to court to ask the court to compel the EC to recollate results for them in those four constituencies. So that's what the MPP did. So a mandamus application basically is an application to a court requiring a body who owes you a duty to actually perform that duty. So when I go to court, so I'm asking the court, force this person to do this thing for me because he owes it to me. Basically, that's what happened. So that's what the MPP did. So the NDC was an affected party in that application because the results have been declared for the NDC. And so if someone else goes to court and says that it should be recollated for them, then the NDC has an interest in that. So the NDC went to court and said, join us to the case so that you can hear us argue to you that what the MPP is asking you to do is unlawful because those seats have already been declared for us and there can be nothing like recollating those seats. Basically, that's what the NDC sought to get. Then the judge who was on the case did not allow the NDC join the case. And I read the excuse, I don't think it's founded. Christmas was coming and people need to know.
Let's just skip this part and get to the put on one.
So basically, he did not allow the NDC to join the case. And in law, that would be a breach of natural justice. Because if you are going to take a decision that's going to have an adverse effect on me, then I am entitled to justify why you should not take that decision.
Fair.
So the judge failed to observe that rule of natural justice. That is the right of the NDC to be heard. So what went to the Supreme Court is on just that. That by refusing to hear us before allowing the Electoral Commission to recollate those seats.
Since then, we are a party that have interest in it.
Precisely. Not just interest, but will be adversely affected.
Okay.
Then there's a breach of natural. So the Supreme Court basically is ruling that no, you are supposed to hear them. So what happened is that now the MPP would now have to go back to the High Court again on the same issues, but with the NDC as a party. And the NDC will now be arguing against the things the MPP will be saying, the claims of duress, all of those things.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One, what does this mean for the constituencies and the swearing in that will be happening in a week's time? Well, that is because two assumptions. First things first, when will the court session happen? But the second thing is that when these guys get to, if this issue is still being dragged, does it mean that the MPs that are already elected now are going to be sworn in?
Yes.
And if the results change, or if the decision of the High Court or the Supreme Court changes, it means that these people would no longer be MPs?
So the issue before the High Court, if you ask me how I see it going, and I don't see the High Court making a determination on 31st, which is set for the, I don't see that happening.
Okay.
And so if no determination is made on the 31st, then the people who have already been declared, the NDC MPs, will remain MPs. That is the case. But what I see also happening is that the NDC is going to be arguing against recollation, because when the MPP went to court, what their argument doesn't seem as though they are saying that the results should be recollated. They don't recognize the earlier declarations. That's the MPP's argument.
Okay.
And the NDC would be pressing the fact that there were earlier declarations. And when it gets to that point, it would become an issue of evidence. Proof of whether those declarations are valid will not come in. And what I see is that a mandamus application would not do in the long run. That's what I see happening. Because some people have already been declared. That would be what would stand. So now it would become a question of whether that declaration is valid or not. And that would go to election petition, parliamentary election petition, which would be requiring the court to actually invalidate the earlier declaration. That would not fit under mandamus.
So
it will fit under certiorari.
you see, problem again, and that's why I'm here, because what you just did is very interesting, and it's a problem I've usually had when I have conversations with the laws people, because usually when people are trying to explain these things, I feel like people always switch into the law mode and explain all these terms. So wait. Let's break it down.
Okay.
In simple terms, what it means is that within the next 1 to 2 weeks, no matter what happens in Parliament, in the Court of Justice,
there's a real likelihood that it's the NDC people that will be sworn in.
That will be sworn in. Let us assume a worst case scenario where it switches. Does it mean that those MPs, even if they've been sworn in, would be taken out and the new MPs would be? That's the worst case scenario.
Oh yeah.
Is there a world where that's possible?
I mean, it's tried that anyone who is not supposed to be in Parliament will be ousted. So
fair enough. Now let's talk about the other constituencies that were not part of it. What does this implication mean for them? Or is there a correlation or there's no correlation between them?
So there's a problem again with what the EC did with a constituency like Obuasi East.
Okay.
A constituency like Ahafwano Southwest, if I'm getting it right, I think so. Mm-hmm. When they went to court, the mandamus application upon which they acted before doing the collation at their Greater Accra Regional Office was in reference to only the 4 that have been determined now: Okaikwe Central, Tema Central, Techiman South, and then Ablekuma North. Mm-hmm. But under the guise of that mandamus order, they went ahead and recollated Obuasi East, which was already declared for NDC.
I follow. I see what you're doing.
So even though Obuasi East was not before the court in the, judicial review application, there is a question as to whether it will not be recognized under this review, but there's a question as to whether the recollation that the EC did, consequent to the MPP's earlier application, will be valid. Because you went to court for 4 constituencies, you ended up collating Obuasi East, which was not a part of it. So now I think that from an NDC perspective, the latter one can just be ignored. If that's one way of it. Mm-hmm. Or the NDC can take an action now for the supposed recollation of Obuasi East to be declared invalid. So those are the 2 options that I see available.
Away from the law, the people perspective, because eventually it's not just about the law. Laws were made for people.
Yeah.
The reaction, my point of view, is that I feel like this entire back and forth is a problem for the people of the constituency. 2 perspectives. 1, so for Tema Central, when it happened, the NDC people were happy because, okay, this is what happened. And the NPP people were like, oh, this is what happened. Now it's been redeclared. Don't you think this back and forth is causing a little bit of tension in these spaces, even if they are not yet, but it's given, like, these are things that have, like, potential to go out of hand if the people don't really understand it well. But the second thing, too, is when you think about it, it's a sort of, for me, I see it as mockery, or it's reducing the value we see with regards to the role of the EC. Because the EC, when they are making declarations, there's this thing about how it's final. ECs don't make errors. That's why we'll prefer, like, we can always blame them for dragging how long they could have declared it. Obviously, it's bad, but it's not as horrible as you saying I declared Julius winner yesterday.
Then the next
tomorrow,
day, this
no, it's
person
not
is
Julius. It's supposed to be somebody else.
I think,
Address those things.
I think for the reputation of the Electoral Commission on the matter, it's damaged because when we're growing up, what we would typically hear the elderly people say is that, oh, for Ghana, dear, every 4 years, it looks as if we are all heading to the brink of conflict. Tensions are high. Once declaration is done, then tensions actually cool off.
Mm-hmm.
But the conduct of this present Electoral Commission is rendering that assertion as false. Because now the EC declares and tensions don't cool off because the next day we now have a reality that tells us that, oh, they can change it again and all of those things. But to bring it into like perspective, let's bring in Domeko Abenya, for example.
Okay.
The EC is now saying they want to rerun Domeko Abenya, one particular polling station.
How?
And the EC's reason is this. Listen, the EC is saying that because the returning officer in that polling station recorded the results that have been declared on a sheet that he was not supposed to record it on. Actually, that sheet is also part of the EC's processes. It's just that is not the particular pink sheet that is recognized for declaration. But it's actually part of the electoral, it's part of their institutional works.
Yeah.
So they are saying that because they recorded it on a different form than what it is supposed to be recorded on, they will not recognize it, they will invalidate all the votes, and the people of that polling station should go back and vote again.
So this is where we have the interaction. Is not so. This is my problem with that logic, because elections are about numbers. What it means is that layman logic 101. Even if those things were recorded on a piece of tissue, and the person who recorded it on a piece of tissue is somebody you believe was credible, what is wrong with you taking it from the piece of tissue and putting it on the main paper and saying you recognize it, if that is what is supposed to happen?
Precisely. I made a post on it today, and it's untenable. I'm of the view that even if you make Maurice Ampao the judge, you make even if you make Wontumi the judge, it's difficult to sustain that argument before any court, because if not for anything at all, 2012 election petition teaches us that this procedural errors from electoral officers will not validate the mandate of the people, because the law delights in substance and not form. What that means is that, what is it we want to know? We want to know that at this particular polling station in Domeko Abenya, this number of people voted. The NDC candidate got this number. The MPP candidate got this number. If that was in dispute, the court would look at it. But that is not what is in dispute here. What is in dispute is that the paper that the number was supposed to have been recorded on is not what is recorded on. And EC thinks that it is very reasonable for them to say, because of that, all of you come back and queue again. It's not the case that the returning officer there is even saying that, oh, I didn't record that the paper is fake. The returning officer is not saying that.
I recorded it on the wrong paper.
On the wrong paper.
So
and that paper is from the EC. It's just not the particular paper he's supposed to record it on.
No offense, that conversation is not even one.
The re-election in Domeko Abenya, the way I see it, is not going to happen. Unless, I don't know, unless for some reason the NDC sees, probably they want to make a political statement, because I feel that any re-election run in Ghana today, parliamentary, even if it's run in the heart of the NPP stronghold, they will lose. Because if I'm selling, if I'm selling a message that we have the presidency, John Mahama has an overwhelming mandate. Look at Parliament; they have 2/3 majority. Do you want to work with a group that controls everything and get development to your constituency, or you want to work with what do you call it? A parade of Osunu Nkiti?
Stop what you're doing. And no, relax. So no, I mean it's Julius. So
the people naturally
wait.
Go to where power is. So
I think that's your point of view on that. Reason I'm saying so is because usually people reason for voting are not usually definite. So we know people vote based on reasons. I know what you're saying is an assertion, but Julius, before that, I know you're having too much fun.
But obviously, who would have the easier?
You're having too much fun with this. And there is another problem with what you're saying is the reason why I don't think that re-vote makes sense to me is because of the reason is because election day was set. It means people traveled from different parts of the country for them to go and vote there on that day. There was probably a mood. There was a reason for that. It's an unfair duress. I don't know if it's the right word to use.
May not be the right word, but it's unfair for them to suggest that
you are going to now make those people vote.
Go back
Knowing
again.
fully well that now that they're going to vote, even what you are saying, they know already who is the president.
Yeah.
They already know what the parliament looks like.
Yeah.
Is it that that polling station has an effect on what the results would be?
Yeah, their argument is that from what they have done now, it's I think 164 votes difference, and the polling station in reference has 600 plus voters, and so by implication, the second, the first runner-up could actually overtake if he gets all the votes from that polling station. And by law, if it was valid that there is a real reason why there must be a rerun, then that would be justified. But here's the case where the reason you are suggesting is absurd. The fact that your officer, wrote something on the wrong paper, he is not disputing that what he has written is
but
wrong.
what of the agents, the party agents? Didn't they all record same thing as the officer?
Yes. So you can't. So on the substance, you can't deny that the people have elected that person in that constituency. You can't say because it was on wrong paper. In fact, I am of the view that if it was even on a goat skin,
This guy.
no, honestly. In fact, even if they are written it on Wele,
At this point, you're having too much fun. It's okay.
it's valid.
It's okay. Fair. Fair. Guys, I think the conversation is clear, and the clarity we've gotten from Julius with regards to this conversation, especially his point of view, makes it very easier for us to understand where this conversation would go. Because based on this, a couple of things I can point out to you is that, one, it means that the recollation that was done, every single person that was declared as the new winners were not winners at all, and there would have to be a court proceeding to deal with that. As at now, all the MPs declared on that day are the ones that will be sworn into Parliament earlier are the ones that will be sworn into Parliament, except if something miraculously changes and there's a court procedure that happens between now and January 7th. That will happen, which is very unlikely. But we've seen Supreme Court take a decision within a day in this same.
Well, on this one,
relax. I'm just, honestly, we've seen things happen.
No. I just want to come in a bit of clarity. You see, what happened in the Afenyo Marking case, the one day thing, it can happen on such constitutional issues and all those applications. But you see, there is a particular reason why the Constitution chose the High Court for parliamentary petitions. So, the domain that the case is heading to, you are saying duress and all those things. The evidence, when it gets to matters of evidence, it can stretch depending on what tactics the lawyers adopt.
Julius, once again, we've seen things happen. We've seen things shock us.
Wait, in fact, if there's anything I can assure NDC people,
anyways,
the NDC MPs will be sworn in.
That is from Julius' point of view, and that is what we just asked him, and I think it's something that we could agree. See, democracy is about making choices and also understanding what they are, and it gives us freedom of expression, and that is why it's his opinion. He's giving us what the backing is, and he's been able to explain to us how he sees it to be. You could agree, you could disagree, but the facts are facts. Your feelings could be feelings. You could be happy, you could be unhappy. That is why, for more episodes from Ask Julius, these are the kind of situations that would happen, because now he's in a position where he has to answer lots of questions, and it's going to be fun. And Julius?
Very, very. It's really fun.
Sure.
I saw in my TikTok comments when I posted about, what do you call it, Okaikwe Central and others, people asking about Obuasi is. So I think now that it's answered, I'm sure definitely people will be asking, so they have the answers now. Domi would remain green.
Most likely remain green. Thank you very much. And keep on watching Ask Julius. Bye.